everyone, and welcome to our Untitled weekly ESPN Esports Rocket League show. It is finally here. It is about time that ESPN Esports have a weekly Rocket League presence. And this is it. This, every single Monday, is where we're going to break down all things Rocket League. So what can you expect from the show? You can expect some top-level analysis. You can expect some weekly guests. You can also expect some power rankings. A lot to talk about here. But the first thing I want to mention is that you may have already noticed from my introduction, we don't have an official name for this show. We are also experimenting with the format of the show. So I'm going to mention this throughout the program. You in Twitch chat, we very much appreciate you joining us, no matter where you're watching us, but particularly in Twitch chat, also on Twitter at ESPN_esports. Give us some suggestions. This is going to be a collaborative effort. We're going to definitely take all of your thoughts and suggestions and comments into consideration as we mold this program into something the Rocket League community reveres. So whether you have thoughts on the name of the show, I saw Rocket Face, for example. I love it. That's my vote. I don't think it's going to get it, but I'm going to push for my boss to make it that. You can give us suggestions on the name. You can give us suggestions on segments. You can give us suggestions on topics that you'd like us to discuss. Flood Twitch chat. Let us know on Twitter. This is definitely going to be a collaborative effort. But on a Rocket League show on ESPN Esports, there is absolutely no way that we could have a show without having the one and the only esteemed voice of Rocket League, the most popular and, in my opinion, the greatest Rocket League analyst commentator to ever live. Ever. Of anyone, especially better than LeafX. I'm talking about Lawler. Lawler, good to see you, man.
You know, you had me in the first half, and then you mentioned the LeafX thing. I'm like, all right, I agree with that. Like that, I can agree to that. And I did not pay him to write that chat, by the way. That was all on him. I had nothing to do with that. So that is a very warm welcome. How you doing, Arda?
I was kind of hoping a Venmo, with a description, like very specific.
Camera.
I'm doing good, man. You had a good weekend, by the way. You unplugged for the weekend. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, man. I sat around a fire and sipped on tasty treats, is how I'll say that. And then, yeah, man, I decompressed, watched a little bit of Rocket League when I could, and kind of tuned out a bit. It was nice. It was really nice. But that doesn't stop Rocket League from happening. We had a lot this weekend, and it's just getting started. So good time to be a Rocket League fan, for sure.
So let's talk about, we'll get into news and notes. Obviously, Europe, North America, we've seen grids, we've seen regional tournaments. Overall, Season X, change in format, we're into it now. What are your initial impressions of the new structure of Rocket League competitive so far?
Yeah, I talked about this briefly in a video towards the tail end. I try to do like weekly and daily announcements about like, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But at the tail end of one of them, I talked to kind of just gave credit to Psyonix. They've been under a lot of fire, obviously, with the decisions and orgs leaving and everything that's been going on. But most of it, and credit to them, it is not easy to organize what is essentially in one regional event. Per day, you're talking 66 best of fives, 2 different broadcasts, 20 talent. Like, there's a lot of things going on and a lot of moving parts. And for them to run pretty much error-free, they deserve a lot of credit. This circuit style, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. There's a lot of moving factors, like I said, behind the scenes that people don't truly recognize. And for them to get to the point where they are now, the fact that they're providing this, and it's only 7 days in, is absolutely wild. As a Rocket League fan, obviously, I've come since I've been here since the very beginning. I was one of the OGs. So to see where it's at now and what we're kind of about to get into excites me, not only as someone who's just happy to see Rocket League Esports kind of get the jump that it deserves, or has earned, in my opinion, but also that it's going to take that next step. We're starting to see, in combination with free-to-play and everything else that's going on, a circuit style that I think is where Rocket League can truly shine. I think anybody who has been to a live event for Rocket League truly understands why this game is meant to play on a live event. And yes, COVID has kind of put a hold on that, but the foundation is being set on what is going to, I think, have an unprecedented year for Rocket League, where people just can't ignore it anymore. the game is too perfect to be an esport, and it's only going to get better and better. So, I mean, we're looking at highlights right now from all the various teams, and the grid is a cool concept as well. We had that going on Thursday and Friday for both EU and NA respectively, and you're talking every single team had the chance to broadcast their own matches, and they could make that broadcast whatever they wanted. It is giving organizations creative freedom to put on a production based upon what they want to cover. And they can go as simple as like a watch party with one of their content creators to a full-blown, like all-out kind of situation like we saw from version 1 or Endpoint or, plenty other various orgs. So you're starting to see things translate a different way from what we're used to. And that's really exciting. I think things are only going to get better and better. So I think the very beginning of it all is really cool to see. The fact that I said we're only 7 days in, we've got still 21 other events to go, plus the grid and everything else. That's like, there's so much Rocket League. And as a fan, I don't know how it's going to play out, and that excites me. You kind of get used to this formula from the league play, and okay, you play 9 weeks, and then there's a regional event, and then there's a world championship, done. But now it's like, we don't know how the teams are going to act. We don't know how they're going to react to having to play this much, this frequently. Like, I tried to do power rankings weekly on my own now, and the spots are going to change so drastically just because we don't know who's going to, I guess, find this routine and kind of just go with the flow with it. So there's a lot of unknown factors, and I think that's really exciting as someone who has followed the scene for as long as I have, to where it's something that is keeping me on my toes and it's fresh. It's a new look. Because I can admit it. I mean, Rocket League was a little bit stagnant for a while. Felt too much of the same. It's very cookie cutter. And this has completely toppled that and started from scratch. I love it. I absolutely love where it's at. So a lot of credit to Psyonix, and as a fan, there's more Rocket League than I can humanly enjoy. Like, I get tired because there's so much going on, but like, you just put up with it and watch it. So yeah, Rocket League is in a really good place, and it's just getting started this season. So.
I am looking forward to your weekly power rankings. I know you did the NA power rankings before this weekend, and I can only imagine how they've changed. Yeah. And we're going to get to that a little bit later on. Lawler will update his NA power rankings just in case you happen to see on his YouTube channel /Lawler his NA power rankings. And you also put up EU, right? I believe today.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are up there.
And those are already wrong, which is awesome. Like, I love that. Like, you try to
well, that's the
do
best
stuff,
part, right?
Yeah, you try to do stuff so you can like go and relax on the weekend and stuff and get some work done. It's like you come back and everything is just on fire, and you're like, all right, this is fine. But so that's the best part.
The other reason why a show like this is going to be useful for Rocket League fans simply is because, as you mentioned, there's so much Rocket League to watch. Every single week there's going to be a grid. There's going to be regionals. What do you watch? What do you prioritize? What is important? What teams should you be looking at, right? Like, I mean, as much as we want to say, yeah, we should watch all of it, a lot of people watching this right now simply won't have the time to do that. Or even if they do, it's going to be a lot of hours of Rocket League to consume. So this is an interesting comment, and I want to get your thoughts on this from Mr. Ratachuk. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Am I the only one who thought that it was too much? I liked watching it all before, and there's no way I can do that now with the new format of the RLCS. Are we in any concern for burnout in terms of the amount of content we're going to get?
Not at all, because at the end of the day, yes, it's still being provided, but no one is forcing you to watch that. I think the best part about this is because there are so many storylines developing and there's so many things going on, it is going to be a lot of pressure on the broadcast talent, and I have full faith in those guys. I mean, those guys are my family. They were part of my everyday life for years. So I have full faith that when the big events come, the international majors roll around, no pressure to you guys, but we'll be there covering it. Just kind of put that out there.
Wink, wink. Okay.
But I think I have a lot of faith that the broadcast talent is going to do a fantastic job of updating people on all these storylines that are developing, making sure they hit the key notes like they always do. So ultimately, I think it's up to you as a fan. What do you want to invest in? It's going to be there whether you like to or not. But can you imagine trying to watch every single NBA game from every single team? No one's expecting you to do that. But now you're going to start to see those fandoms really develop. I'm going to see people that are legitimately a true fan of one or two specific teams without the expectation of like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of NA and I watch every NA match, which is still 8 hours a week of content that you're consuming. So again, now that that's been totally blown up, like it's so much more than that. I do not expect you. Yeah, tune in for your couple matches of your favorite teams, or tune into the Grid where you can watch, and shout outs to Jason and chat, Supersonic. We're casting the version 1 matches for the Grid. Like, come be a biased fan. There's nothing wrong with that. And been this weird culture where, like, I come from traditional sports. I love the NFL. Green Bay Packers live and die. Like, but for some reason, esports culture is like booing is bad. It's like, no, man, it's home field advantage. Like, put them in a tough environment. There's nothing wrong with that. And I want that to develop even more. I want that bridging of the gap of what Rocket League is trying to do. Is trying to bridge the gap between traditional and non-traditional. And if you have biased fans, that's only going to make it better. I want to hear crowds chanting back and forth. I want that fandom to come. Yeah. And if you can't watch all the content, that's fine. Watch the content of the team you want to support or the player you want to support and go all in on it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Shout out to Supersonic as well in the chat. Normally, I'm the maestro of our show here, you know, the MC of your Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Power Battle Car Symphony.
Well played.
But I will give my opinion every now and then. 3 words we need to focus on here, which I agree with you 100%. A wise man once said, controversy creates cash, right?
It's entertainment, man.
Look no further. Exactly. Look no further. And I'm not going to talk about other esports because we have shows for pretty much every major esport on ESPN Esports. But look at what's happening in Valorant right now with TSM and Sentinels. Yep. You truly believe those 2 teams hate each other. The way they talk about each other publicly, the way they tweet about each other. Literally, one of the TSM players, after winning the championship this past weekend over Sentinels, went in a championship interview and said, someone had to shut these kids up. And it had to be a boomer like me to get out there and prove that I can still do it and shut up these kids. That's great. And you know what that means? It adds drama. It adds flair. It adds sizzle. It adds rivalry. All of a sudden, you're getting invested. All the TSM fans are up in arms. How dare these kids come and try and claim our spot? And then the new Sentinels fans are like, TSM is old guard. They're boomers. We hate them. They suck. Their fans are stupid. Right? These are the kind of rivalries that you want in every single esport, especially Rocket League, where it's the barrier to entry for this game is so low. You all know this watching it. Lawler, you know this more than anyone. We talk about it all the time when we've been doing segments. You want these rivalries, especially when you believe the teams hate each other. And I know in talking with a lot of Rocket League players, as you know, Lawler, some of them aren't the most charismatic. Some of them aren't the most, lend themselves the most to publicly want to have these kind of beefs.
They're very dull. Yeah, personality is very lacking from a lot of players, and it's not because they don't have it. It's just because they're too shy to show it. And I think that is one of the things. I know Richard Lewis, who is a wonderful friend of mine, has mentioned that one of the biggest things lacking from the Rocket League scene is the personalities, and I think that is in part to not only the fact that these kids are young and they're inexperienced and they just don't have that public-facing opinion. They're not really comfortable with talking on camera like we are right now, or elaborating on a thought. It's more of just like, how did the matches go? Good. And that's it. It's like, give us more. Give us the meat and potatoes, per se. But as they get older and they get more experienced, I mean, I always will point out Garrett G as a prime example. Garrett was a young, shy kid who didn't like doing interviews, and now he's one of the best and most well-spoken players in our scene. And anytime you get a chance to interview him is an absolute blessing because he just knows how to articulate his thoughts very, very well, and it gives us that insight that we as fans just can't get enough of. And I think that's the exciting thing about what they're doing with the Grid and how all these, organizations have the ability to kind of pick apart and reach out to those players and be like, yes, you're going to do interviews. Yes, we're going to pick your brain, but we're going to have fun doing it. Show us that personality. That's why I think Beyond the Summit, a tournament that focuses heavily on player interaction and bringing them in as commentators, is one of the most appreciated, is because we finally get to do that. It's why I started the Brawl, is because I wanted people to learn about these players and love them as much as I do, because I've been very blessed to be able to work alongside them and get to know them at live events. So that kind of concept, I think, is still very much so lacking, because there's only so much you can do on a broadcast without extending it super long. But those are the types of things that I think can be focused on. I can't imagine, if you came into, you look at like G2 and Energy, 2 teams that have been dominant in the Rocket League scene for North America for a very long time. Anytime they play, we have a feeling that it's going to be a good match. But imagine if there was the drama between the players. Anytime you see JNaps go up against Kronovi and Rogue, like, there is some bad blood there. Like, they do not want to lose. That stuff needs to be talked about. We need interviews. We need that public contrast, because that is how we are going to get more and more people invested. So I do think the early foundations, as I've said, are being set. I think we're going to start transitioning into that. And in general, as we get more and more of these kids starting to grow up, I mean, we've got some veterans in the age where, the typical age, yes, of these new talent are 15, 16, but you are starting to see a little bit more where it's averaging between like 18 to 21, which is a lot different from when we first started. So again, I think it is trending in that direction, but ultimately the players need to find a way to become more comfortable with speaking their opinions on those things without worrying about, stepping on toes and stuff. At the end of the day, it's just drama. It's all in good fun banter, but all these guys do get along. Like, there's no pros that like genuinely hate each other. It's just,
Sure.
yeah, I throw shade at Leaf every day. I love the guy to death, but like, have you seen
Because
his
you guys are
beard? Like,
friends.
what
Yeah,
are you
totally.
doing, Leaf?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know what to say there. As a fellow
yeah.
Canadian, I'm a little ashamed. I'm not gonna lie.
He's trying though. I give him that. I can't do that, so I give him credit.
If the players and we'll move on from this point, but if the players are not the ones that are comfortable adding that verbiage, adding
Right.
that drama, that bravado, find someone that is. I'll use Carlos from G2 as a perfect example. He's
Ocelot's
not
a
playing the
homie.
games.
Yeah.
Ocelot is one of the most important, I would go so far as to say this, one of the most important public-facing figures in esports for how he is able to further rivalries while maintaining a self-aware image, while still being an executive of a major esports brand. But when he needs to, he adds the right sprinkle to a rivalry to make you care. So I would not be opposed for every major Rocket League team to having some sort of dedicated mouthpiece, like a manager in pro wrestling, if you will.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic. I think I mean, shout outs to Golden Boy. One of the first things he introduced when he brought us in was watch wrestling. The way that they tell storylines is some of the best in all of commentary. And I agree. I think wrestling's kind of but ultimately, like, I really appreciate how they go about telling their stories and getting people invested into the action that's being provided. So, I mean, I can watch wrestling with no visual and just watch audio only and be like, this is awesome. Like, I'm invested in these stories. So, I think that same thing applies. I do think Carlos, I mean, I watched him as a League of Legends fan growing up, and you could see just every match that he went into had that little bit extra that people were invested in because of the way that he carried himself and a little bit of, trash talk that he threw. But that was the whole point, is you wanted to see what would happen. Whether you were for him or against him, it didn't matter. You were invested. So
Yeah.
I do agree. I do think that a lot of these organizations that are coming in with their plethora of experience and the benefit of having like the G2s and stuff is they know how to go about it. It's why G2 is so well respected. I mean, they throw shade at their players like once a week on Reddit just because it's funny, it's memes, it's it's a good way to show that not only are they part of the community, but they have a little bit of fun with it. And as long as the players can take it, and that's the hardest thing, is finding the players that can jab at each other without the issue of getting their feelings hurt. Like, it does take some time to warm up into that. So again, I know not everybody's going to have his thick skin or whatever. Not everybody can get told they lost to a silver like Rizzo every week, but ultimately it's all in good fun, and they understand that, and it's just great for their branding. Like, yes. people love those types of interactions. So yeah,
Captain Hopeless in chat also says Hex comes to mind. Yes, Hex is a great example in Call of Duty as well. Let's get to some of the results. The RLCS European Regional Event #1 concluded on Sunday. Team BDS, this is one team that you've been talking about a lot, Lawler. They won 30 grand. How'd they do it? How did you see them performing so well in the first regional?
They're so good, man. This is a team that I've been pretty keen on. I even tweeted this out, basically saying that this is the team that I've been talking about since I first saw them kind of promote in and really get their form down. I was like, this team has the foundation to be very talented. And a lot of pros have also said that if they play on their peak, they can beat Vitality. Well, they did. That is not an easy feat. They are one of the cleanest teams that I've watched play. The way that they approach the field is very aggressive, but at the same time, they also understand the fundamentals of just the game itself. The difficulty with Rocket League is it is a very reactionary game. It plays super fast, and every decision you make is dictated almost preemptively. You see the ball develop, you go over to that, and then you make your decision. But what they have the capability to do is, despite playing at that super fast pace and that always go, go, go mentality, they also recognize when they have to create space for their teammates, when they need to slow it down, when they need to, force a challenge or they have the situational awareness at a fast speed to know how to dictate how the pace of the game is going to go. And that's not something you can teach. I am very biased, and that's why I've become a fan of this team, is I am very biased to the players like Mist and Archie, the guys that just have that methodical approach to the game, but have the mechanics to back it as well. So this is a team in BDS that every single player, and shout outs to Mark Bayet, he had a phenomenal weekend. But they just get it. And it's not something that is easily taught. You can try as someone who's coached teams in the past, you can do your best to be like, okay, you are sitting here in this corner. There's no one in the midfield to pass to. They have 3 defenders in net. Why are you throwing it mid? No one is there. You're just throwing possession away, and they just don't get it. And as much as you try to point that out, you can't really do that decision for them in the moment. And for the players that can just grasp that and pick that up, it's just wonderful to see someone really take Rocket League on such a finite level and be able to really extrapolate this is the ideal way to approach this situation, and they do it continuously in multiple scenarios. So you're also coupling that with phenomenal mechanics and some of the stupidest things I've ever seen with how every single player can hit flip resets and stuff now. It's wild. So very talented team, consistency across the board, and they do it as a true team effort. They're the whole package. They're a really good team. Really good.
What other teams stood out for you, either good or bad? I mean, some teams that, have been followed through in the past, like Liquid went 2-3. They didn't have a great weekend. Barcelona were out at stage 2. The repackaged Reciprocity guys, Oxygen, didn't make it out of groups. Were there any concerns from any teams for you?
Yeah, I think concerns isn't really a good way to put it, just because it is still early. I mean, there's a lot of bounce back potential with this circuit format. So ultimately, Oxygen, Liquid, all these guys are still dealing with new rosters, right? They're still trying to figure out what they want to accomplish. And credit to why I like this system and format so much is there is a lot of open qualifier potential, right? You have teams that people normally wouldn't get to see for years at a time because they would have to qualify for rival series and then promote into the RLCS, get used to the RLCS, and then they would get to play. And that's not the case anymore. Teams like Triple Trouble, which you guys should know who Bluey is. Guy's a phenomenal player. He was an MVP in multiple seasons. Guys won DreamHacks before, and it's he's on Triple Trouble. They're making a new resurgence, and they're ending top 8. That's crazy. You look at Greasy, who won the World Championships in Season 2 in Amsterdam, and now he's a top 8. I think he made it actually to the semifinals with Magnifico. I don't remember exactly or not. I didn't get to see the back end, but a person that everybody thought we would never see compete again, Greasy Meister is now in a place where it's him and the rest of his squad are looking phenomenal. So again, they made it to the quarterfinals. The semifinals. They lost to Blokes. So that's wild. And the fact that we have this open qualifier situation where, yes, the teams are going to have the leeway. But again, I love the fact that multiple people can kind of just come in, and if they have that really good run on the weekend, they play well. Also, someone is at my door, and I will excuse myself. Arda, take it away.
All right, so you are watching our very first Untitled Rocket League show here on ESPN Esports. We thank you all for joining us. I'm going to fill as Lawler answers the door. I hope it's delivery. I wonder if he got pasta. He was talking about pasta before the show went on the air. I'm assuming it's going to be mac and cheese. Anyhow, what I want to mention is that this is going to be a collaborative effort. The Untitled Rocket League show is only a stand-in name. So you in chat have been very good at giving us some suggestions. Quick Chat is one that's a very popular one. There were a couple of other ones. Bim Bam. I think Shogun was the one that suggested that one. But feel free to keep suggesting. And also segments. What would you like to see from this show? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see in terms of future segment ideas and how we cover the games? Because there's games every single week. There is no rest period for Rocket League anymore in the RLCS. So there's always going to be something to talk about. But what interests you? What do you want us to talk about as it pertains to the teams? Do you want breakdowns? Do you want analysis of the teams and the leagues? Do you want predictions? Give us some ideas, because we want this to be a collaborative effort. We want this to be a home for Rocket League here at ESPN Esports, and that's exactly what we're endeavoring to do. And luckily, we've been having a lot of success with the tournaments as of late. Of course, the ESPN Esports Rocket League Invitational, and before that, Lawler's Brawl 10K and Brawl Invitational. And look at that, just like a perfect maestro and a symphony that ends on the perfect note, Lawler is back. Welcome back. Did you get your food? Was it food?
Yeah, it was food. Pretty
okay.
happy about it.
What did you What did you order? What did you order?
I've got some Korean barbecue meatballs and stuff. Oh, I can
Korean
smell them right now.
meatballs, nice.
Oh,
I like
it. Smells so good.
Someone in chat said Dino Nuggets.
Dino Nuggies, let's go.
Dino Nuggies, yeah.
Yeah, we went on a pretty big tangent a couple weeks, last week, about a stimulus plan so everybody gets Dino Nuggies.
I like it.
It's the play, man. It's the play.
Also, I'm sorry, no more name suggestions. We have the perfect name. Saycon 1856, the Boom Shakalaka Show. I mean, how can you top that? Come on, folks. I mean, how did you not think of this before? People, come on. That's the one. That is the one. Okay, let's get to NA. The grid, week 1. Your power rankings will certainly change. It was a crazy week, but a lot of fun. Some great games. So also some. Well, I mean, we have to start with NRG, right?
Right.
You've been mentioning that one result is not going to be the end of the world. Mm-hmm. With that said, though, if there's one team you're looking at with all the hype and all the, the storyline, the world championships, everything surrounding NRG, and then this is what happens with the first event, don't you kind of look at that and say, ooh,
it is an eye opener, especially with the teams that they lost to. They lost to Sonic Sue, new roster, brought in J-Russ, formerly known as Chicken. Wasn't sure how well they were going to do, but I mean, the fact that that team did go on to the semifinals is notable. So again, a team that looked really good had their day. The other team that they lost to is the Peeps, that is formerly Pittsburgh Knights with Gyro and AJ. They have then been released from that organization and picked up Illusion, former of Envy. So their 2 losses, I mean, you're talking they went 1-6 this weekend. That is scary. So if I know anything about that team, I'm not too concerned about it. I know they will bounce back. The exciting thing is next week, RLCSX starts for the NA region, and they have another grid before that as well. So 2 very big moments for them to bounce back, and that's where the difficulty lies. Is yes, I have my power rankings the way that I do, but drastic changes may happen. We have never seen these teams had to play in this kind of format or with this many matches consistently over and over again, and it does not let up, ever. It is nonstop now for the next 9 months, essentially. So you get a couple trade window weeks off, but other than that, it's going to be Rocket League for these guys at a very high level. So there may be some players that deal with burnout, some players who do better in this scenario. We don't know how it's going to play, and that's what makes this exciting, is I genuinely do not know who is going to end up on top at the end of this, because we've never seen these players have to compete in this style before. We never have.
I do want to ask a follow-up question there. Mm-hmm. From what you know about the scene and what you know about the players and how they have handled the workload in the past, even from a general, I'm not asking for specific examples, but from a general level, how do you think the increased workload and also the fact that there is no breaks like there were previously, how do you think the pros will react in Rocket League?
There will be some that do better than they've ever done before. There will be some that really step up to it because they just have never had that push behind them to make them realize how much work goes into it. And because they're now forced to, they are going to get better, significantly better, because they just have never had to put in the hours. There will be some, too, that just can't handle it. We are going to see some rosters crumble under how much Rocket League there is. They will find out they are not cut out for how difficult it is actually to be someone at the highest level. There is quite a few pros that skate by, and I will say that publicly, that there is some that are so relaxed and just casually just rely on their natural gifts. Not saying that they haven't worked hard to get where they are, but compared to others, trust me, they're going to get overwhelmed. So again, bold statement, you are going to see some big names, some big rosters fall apart hard, while others will rise. And we're also, with that, going to get some teams that you've probably never heard of that are also going to come to the top. So I think it is wide open right now. There is a lot of depth in the game. And the ones that can figure it out quick, early, and often and can kind of put in that routine are going to be ones that are rewarded. You're already seeing some teams that aren't competing in the field, which is more of an open qualifier, kind of like a ranked six-mans on a serious note kind of style, that aren't competing in that because they feel it's better practice to scrim for an hour against other teams. So there is some that are taking a different approach, whether they want to use the grid as scrims or otherwise. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. So it is going to be different for a lot of these teams. I do feel that it is time for a new era of Rocket League, and we're just getting started with it.
Well, with that new era of Rocket League come a familiar ordering of teams. So every week on the yet-to-be-named ESPN Esports Rocket League show, we're going to give you power rankings, which 100% Lawler. There is no fail, no doubt that every single viewer, everybody in Twitch chat and on social media will agree with 100%.
Oh, yeah,
this
totally.
is going to be no debate. Everyone is going to take every single team and order that you put forth
100%.
as gospel
Yep.
and as law. It will actually be illegal to debate this.
We'll see on that one.
I mean, it's just look, it's not our rules, okay? But I'm just saying. Okay. What I am very curious about is you did, like I mentioned, do an NA ranking before the weekend. The grid has come and gone. I'm very curious who your number one is, but we're going to get there. What we're going to do is we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we're going to show you 6 to 10 all at once. So, Lawler, let's get to our power rankings. Number 5 in NA is...
We're going to go with G2. So a lot of people, I had them actually significantly lower. I had G2 around like 7, 8. Because when you play for 8 weeks and don't have any notable wins, I think you went like 2-10 or something like that in the offseason against like notable rosters. You don't deserve to be a top 3 team. And I've even had G2 fans who are very biased even be like, yeah, we don't deserve that. Like 7th is about where I'd put them. So a lot of respect and a lot of mutualness in that. But G2 is back in the team house now. I just need to know if that is going to be the end-all to be-all when it comes to their performance. They made it into the semifinals. It's the best-looking result they've had all offseason. Now in the official season, they're back in the house. The chemistry is there again. But with that said, I'm not going to just give them an automatic bye. And that's the hardest thing about these power rankings, is I need to look at it from a purely objective standpoint. What are their results? How have they performed? What rosters are they beating? And have they done it consistently? This is the first time in 9 weeks that G2 has not looked like crap. So, with that said, they are 5th. That's still 5th as the 5th best in an entire region. That is still pretty good. So, G2, semifinals, they're very good. They are a team with a ton of potential, but still need to show me that they can do it again in the grid this weekend, and then RLCS when it starts and it matters the most. So, again, G2, I expect a lot of these rankings to move up and down, but now that they're in the house, can they prove to me that they are the best team in the region like they used to be? That's what I'm waiting for.
So G2 were 7th in your previous rankings.
My previous, I gave them 7th, which is probably a little bit nicer than I should have been, but...
Well, they didn't have a great offseason. To quote one esteemed Lawler, they played like trash for 9 weeks straight.
Yep.
Direct quote from the video. They did make the semifinals. They lost to Space Station in the grid this past weekend, however. So there you go. Number 4 for Lawler. Where do you got?
We've got Rogue. Rogue actually took a step down. I had Rogue a little bit higher, but they did not have a good week. Initially, in my initial power rankings, I had Energy as a clear number 1 because of their offseason results. It was too easy to make it that. But 2 through 4, I really struggled with. This was kind of interchangeable results based upon how they have. I've been talking about an Envy and Rogue rivalry. Space Station is now at a point where they're starting to do well based upon grid results. Because there is new roster changes, Rogue is one of the teams that obviously they brought in First Killer and Turanturo, but we didn't get to see that. I had no idea what was going to happen with Turanturo because he was on vacation for 2 weeks during the covert event as well as the Brawl 10K, and they played with their coach, Corrupted G. So how am I supposed to give them a ton of results when they have only played in 1 or 2 tournaments with Turanturo, and the tournaments that they're playing in, we haven't seen them play against any of the notable rosters. So I did have Energy pretty high initially. I think I had them in top 3 or top 2. I got them in 2nd. But based upon the results, I do think because it is so close between the top, I dropped them down. I mean, they're losing to Plot Twist. Many consider a rival series team one of the better performing now that they've brought Sosa on. And then they also lost to, if I can remember, it wasn't pretty. Who else did they lose to? Why can't I see it? They lost to Plot Twist, and then they dropped down and beat Kansas City Pioneers and lost to Envy. So Envy was a team that found themselves in the grand finals. So again, Envy and Rogue is that rivalry I've been talking about all offseason. I want to see because they have, to me, similar play styles, and they kind of translate back and forth. But Rogue should be winning a lot of these games a lot more convincing than what I expect. I mean, the fact that they let Kansas City Pioneers take a game off of them just goes to show like how close the region is getting. But again, Rogue I think does take a step down, and the only reason they took as big a step as I wanted them to is because of how well the other teams performed at the same time. So Rogue, a talented team, a lot of consistency that you're starting to see from them, and a lot of respect they're getting too from the top. They're very fast and very dangerous. It's just a matter of what version of consistency do we get out of the individual players week in and week out. But yeah, Rogue, a very talented roster. Fourth is nothing to shy away from. They could easily be third or second depending on how they play each week.
So like you said, they went 1-2 in the grid this past week. And this actually begs the question. So for just a little bit of bracketology here, or just philosophy on how you put this together. So Rogue is a team that didn't really compete in their full form in the off season in tournaments.
We didn't get to see much of them.
We didn't get to see much of them, and they didn't do too well in this tournament. G2 was a team that played very poorly throughout the off season, but had a really good showing here. So how do you weigh the results from the grid versus their performance in the offseason when putting the power rankings list together today?
I think the offseason is tough because there was a lot of different roster changes that were going on consistently. We had so many times where, like, take version 1, for example. Previously, Cloud9 turned into Rad Enterprises. They tried out 4 different players. So how am I supposed to figure out how they rank and stack up when they keep changing who they're playing with and the players that they're going up against also keep changing? So now that rosters are locked in, now that we have finalized teams, we have the ability to see how are you performing against these guys at the top, and week in and week out consistently, what am I getting? So now that we have official locks, things are set in stone, the RLCSX season has begun, now we can start to find that form of consistency or those consistent results over time against the rosters that we're going to expect to see them throughout the next 9 months. So it is something that was very difficult. You take it a little bit of basis. The reason why NRG was so easy to pick is because they are a team that they stuck with Squishy, they stayed with Squishy, and they won everything. And the one they didn't win, they got second. So yeah, NRG's kind of good. That we knew that coming in. So for some of these other rosters, now that it's kind of formed in, and that's why I've mentioned it numerous times, there is going to be a lot of adjustment in this power rankings over the weeks until we start to get some results to give us that kind of basis. So I think it does have to weight a little bit heavier because the grid and the RLCSX seasons are significantly more important in the players' eyes as well. I mean, at the end of the day, they're working to go to a world championship. That's going to outweigh any off-season event. As much as involved as I am in one, it's not as heavily weighted as the RLCS. It never will be. Players care about that more than anything else.
And that's another reason why I'm very curious to see where you put NRG. You did put them at number 1 before the weekend. Let's let that hang and see where they go, which leads us to number 3. Who you got?
Number 3 on my list is going to be Envy. And this one was another team that, based upon me saying this, should tell you how the rest is going to play out. So Envy is a team that has had really good performances. The first time we got to see what this roster was truly made of was the first time they debuted Turbo Pulse, which was in the Brawl 10K. Obviously, you guys were a part of that, and they ended up winning the whole thing over NRG. So we got to see an Envy that we got like
that was an amazing
Envy.
final too.
Yeah,
7 games
down to 7.
It
was a true battle. You know, it was a really close game. So we got to see Envy perform at a style, and then immediately after that, they played in another event, and they looked flat. Like it was pretty dull. So Envy is a team that I think has a ton of potential, but I just don't know what Envy I'm going to get in and week out. So until I get more results, it's really hard to place them. Despite that, I think they are a team that if you grab their roster and say, okay, I'm going to play you against some of these guys in the bottom 5, how can I ultimately give the other teams the benefit of the doubt? Because they are a very talented team. I just know that they're going to give us a base level, but are we going to see the Envy that just overwhelms teams and just does what you're seeing on screen right now with these pass plays and working the field and just shot after shot, like the teams are just jumping chaotically to make saves? Or are we going to get an Envy that gets beat to the ball? They miss some of their aerials. They just don't look good. So you also have to kind of couple that with what team are they going up against? And is it a factor that they're just a better version of the team they're playing? Or is it, a really strong roster? And I'm glad that we got to see that they made it further in the tournament, because you did get to see them go up against a Rogue. You got to see them go against a really hot Sonics. Omelet, a team that a lot of people have been really keen on during the offseason with their results. They went up against Space. So you got some notable wins for them, and the ones that they did lose to were teams that I also still had question marks. So it gave me kind of a two birds with one stone kind of mentality with it. So again, Envy I think is a really talented roster, a ton of potential. I just need to see the performance where they can kind of keep at that high level, and that becomes their new base, rather than, okay, they play flat in this tournament, but this tournament they look really, really strong. What am I going to get out of Envy? And that's where the question mark relies, and that's why they're third.
Hear me out. Omelet. Excellent Rocket League team.
Yep.
Horrible use of eggs.
Depends on how I'm feeling. I mean, eggs are great. I love eggs, so I don't even care like how it's prepared, as long as it's like scrambled or fried. It doesn't matter. Just give it to me.
Sunny side up, man.
Yep. Or like on some like ramen or something.
If you can't have the runny
it's a food
yolk
podcast now, man. That's all it is. We're just talking about food.
Welcome to here's your Untitled Rocket League / food podcast, where we give you our spicy food takes. I think I'm right. Chad agrees with me on the omelet thing. So Team Envy, you had them at 4th in your previous rankings, and they made the finals of the grid. They lost to Space Station Gaming, and they also won the Brawl 10K, like you mentioned. Yep. They're a team to watch, though. 100%. They're definitely a team to watch this entire season.
Anybody in this top 10, and even some outside of it, are teams that you should pay attention to. I think there's legitimately, because the RLCSX season now has 32 teams in the fall split that are able to compete, roughly 16 of them are ones that you should definitely keep and pay attention to, with a couple like notable mentions here and there. So I think there's a lot of really talented rosters, and the fact that it is that open qualifier style, by all means, I don't think there's anybody you can really sleep on. Like, these players have to come serious every single, or you will get overwhelmed. You will get surprised. So there's a level of seriousness now moving forward. I don't think you can take any of these teams lightly, no matter where they're at the list. At the end of the day, if some of these teams are having a good day, they can play upset. It will happen. So, and we're already seeing that a lot in Europe, which is really awesome. It makes for some really exciting matches.
Supersonic said scrambled firm. Who has firm scrambled eggs? What does that even mean? What are you putting in your scrambled eggs to make them firm?
Arda, it's not worth it right now, man.
What is he thinking? Scrambled eggs are supposed to be fluffy and light. I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. Number 2, who you got?
Number 2, I've got Space Station Gaming. This one was kind of an easy and a no-brainer with moving them up. Obviously, like I said, 2 through 4 were my kind of questionable ones. I didn't know what order I wanted to put them in, but based upon results, it was, how is this one going to play out? And the biggest reason there was a question mark is because I didn't know what form they were going to give us, with Reddles being a new addition. We knew they were talented. We knew that they had a lot of opportunity to perform well, but we just hadn't seen that chemistry really develop yet. And we finally got it, and it answered a lot of my questions, because it was a team that I knew would get better with more experience and more reps. And as they played more and more in the tournament, they kept looking better and better. And Space Station is just annoying. They're so annoying in their playstyle. Like, between Arsenal and Reynolds chasing you down and demoing you, and then you've got Sipical still available to hit whatever pass or shot you want, and then Arsenal all of a sudden is still back in rotation, and then he hits a pass. It's like, they're just a really talented team and a really frustrating team to play against. And a lot of the reason why is credit to their coach and how they've been conditioned as a team. They do a really good job of adjusting. Like, if you want to talk about the chess match of Rocket League, watch Space Station play. They will hit you with multiple playstyles throughout the course of one series, where they'll try one thing and they'll be super aggressive, lots of bumps and demos. All right, it's not working. Let's back off and go for counterattack. Let's draw them in and then play it the other way. Okay, that's not working. Let's work the midfield. And like, they change up a multitude of ways of how they approach the field. And it's an absolute treat to watch. So I'm pretty keen on Space Station. I always have been. I knew AXB was a talented player, and even though he was a fundamental part of that roster and how they functioned, I knew Reddles, and to me, Reddles is a top 10 player in North America. I think he's highly underrated. We got to see truly what he was capable of on an individual level when he played in Johnny Boy's The Fusion tournament. So I'm glad to see that he's finding his form, and the fact that they ended up winning this past weekend is a testament to that. Space Station has always been a team that will make you fight for wins, no matter what. And the fact that they're still able to, despite a roster change, come back in a relatively rough offseason because they were trying to figure out who they wanted to stay with. It was a pretty late roster pickup because Reynolds was trying out with literally every team. But he found a home that will take care of him, and I think he's happy to call home for an extended period of time with a very good backing between coach, staff, top to bottom, and two players that I think he's